And when I counsel with people, if God's not in the counseling, we ain't doing it. Pardon the grammar. Pardon me. You can't counsel people godly apart from God and His Word. So theology, whether you like this or not, is everything in your marriage to start with. So I've got to have that attitude about marriage. So I don't have the right or the liberty or the privilege to go home and mistreat my wife. Or any other place, by the way. To do anything less than what God has saved me to do for her. And He did save me so that I would do it for her. Okay? Part of that. So I have an attitude, a Bible attitude, about the design of marriage itself, that God designed it for companionship, that it was a covenant before God. Secondly, in this passage, as we let the Word of Christ dwell in us richly, secondly, I have a godly attitude about the true definition, number one, of love. Number two, I have a true idea or a good attitude about expressing that love. Now, love is a verb. It's an action word. It's agape. It's the love of God. I can do this because I'm saved. Okay? If God has commanded His people to love their enemies, the worst case scenario, I can love my spouse. You can love your spouse. If that's the case. Pray it isn't, but you can. So, love in the Christian life is not something that's part-time. Love is something that is consistently expressed. That we don't do it because it's Valentine's Day. We don't do it because it's Christmas. We don't just express love because it's a birthday, a special day. This is National Wives' Day, etc., etc. That's not the motivator here. The motivator is what I am before God, what I have from God. That is the ability and the command to love her as Christ loves the church. The agape love of God. So any other love won't do. Now, if you want a practicum on that, to express that, go to 1 Corinthians 13 at your convenience to see what this is key. That I have this kind of attitude because Hollywood, the world, romance, goosebumps, they don't cut it. Feelings don't cut it. Do I have feelings for her? You better believe it. Okay? You better believe it. And don't she look nice today? Now, I got set up with a bad question yesterday. Now, husbands, you got to be sharp. Now, not sharp with her, but you got to think. We're cruising down the road, and Miss Patty, Miss Julie had expressed their love to her, and I'm going, I mean, they bought her a nice gift. I'm going to Goodwill to find me a pair of slacks. Jeans, by the way. And she said, if I get this right, she said to me, she said, do I remind you of when we first got married? And I said, no, you don't remind me when we first got, well, that was wrong. Well, what was I, because I just told her how nice she looked. She said, well, what was I, an old hag when we got married? Well, you see what you set yourself up for? It's a no-winner if you're not careful. I said, honey, I'm not even going there with you. That doesn't even cut it. You're not the person you were 39 years ago. That's what I was saying. We're not the same people. We're not the same persons, etc., etc. So the 18-year-old girl that just got out of high school that I married, no, she don't remind me of her at all. Duh. I mean, let's think about that. So she's a different person. She's mature. You got it. Okay. But sometimes this expression of love is a little tougher than you assume because there are pitfalls, and we're part of those pitfalls. So be careful about it. But love is to be consistently expressed, so it's not just a special occasion. You know, husbands that love their wives is a continuous thing. Colossians 3:19, he mentions it here again, be not bitter against them. Then in Titus 2:4, he admonishes the older ladies in the church to teach the younger women to love their husbands, how to express that in a consistent and a practical way. So let's don't take it for granted because we got married that I'm expressing love. Let's don't do that, because love is something that has to be, now listen to what I'm about to say, experienced. Theological illustration, you'd want this. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. But has the world experienced the love of God? No, who has? That whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So love is expressed, but love is experienced. So don't get up in the morning just assuming anything. Love is something that we experience on a constant basis. And it's not for reassurance necessarily, although it is reassuring. It is because of who we are. It's because of what we are. That's how we live. You understand this? This is not something, we got 10 ways to express my love for Edna. We have some ways between us and so forth, but it's not limited to 10 or a number. This is a way of life, a doing of things, etc., etc. And I give you this illustration. She says it's because I'm older. Somehow the other day she hurt her back, and she was in absolute misery. And you know, when Mama's not happy, things aren't really happening like they should. So when she stands over the kitchen counter, it makes it worse. So she'd fix dinner or supper, and her back, she'd take a break and sit down for a while and go back and try to finish up this and this and this and this. Now, I said, Pastor, why didn't you do that before? Trust me, it was better for her to endure for me to go in the kitchen. Okay, but anyway, it was okay. So after we had dinner, she endured that. We had dinner and so forth. I got an ice bag for her, so she put it on her back, so forth, and she got a little bit of relief from that. I said, honey, I don't want you back over that counter. I'll take care of the kitchen. Now, you would think with only 2 people, that'd be a simple task. But this is love. Edna can make a sandwich, and the whole kitchen look like she's cooked a banquet for somebody. And I'm going, okay. Now, that's not any reflection on her inabilities, but her imagination. So when I walked in the kitchen, I went, whoa, I volunteered for something here that's really going to be loving. But I did it. And I didn't want her back in it because she was in. I would say, well, you say, well, Pastor, you should have done. Exactly. You should have. And she experienced what I really, quote, felt or really had for her in a practicum or in a practical way. Now, what was that other than me just looking out for her good? That's all it was. She would have me, okay, because she loves me. And that's what we're trying to get you to see. It's not something that we just superficially mention and go on about our lives and say, well, okay, I know this, I know that, I know this. And the problem with us is we do know. We do know. But I wonder what it would take for us to be provoked to the point where we would be willing to initiate that kind of love or any kind of, God's kind of love for our spouses in a way that's pleasing to God. You see, because love causes us to drop to our knees and serve. Okay? Leadership is nothing but servitude. That's all it is. So it just drops, we just stop what we're doing to serve one another, to honor, prefer one another above ourselves. Let me give you an illustration. We read out of 1 Peter 3 this morning, and we stopped with verse 7. And we talked about the husband's role or somebody's response, his character and so forth and so on. But then he goes on in that passage. And now listen how this would change things at your house if you implemented these truths. Now listen, ready? Here we go. Finally, be ye all of one mind. Let's get in harmony around here, okay? Having compassion one for another. Would that change my relationship with Edna? Love as brethren, the godly kind of love. Be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing, or argument for argument, but contrariwise, blessing. Know that ye are thereunto called, that you should inherit a blessing. For he, he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they may speak no guile. Let him hate evil or eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers, but the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. Now that's 2 or 3 times. Number 1, he mentioned the word life. Number 2, he brought up prayers. in that same passage of Scripture. But think about the practicum of that, just expressing that loving experience for one another that would change things. And this isn't just from me to her or from her to me. This is us together as companions practicing these things. Think how that would change attitudes between husbands and wives if they just practiced that one simple passage of Scripture. And I don't want to limit to husband and wife for sure, because that's general principles.